Chrystia Freeland is on a diplomatic mission this week, reaching out to resistance premiers in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Here's the Deputy Prime Minister and Intergovernmental Affairs Minister with Alberta's Jason Kenney yesterday in Edmonton.
As the Prime Minister noted on election night, he wants to be there for Alberta and Saskatchewan, recognizing there are some real tensions in the Federation, some deep challenges in our economy, and Albertans are looking for a fair deal, and I certainly hope we can get down to some positive conversations about how to do that.
I am here to look for common ground. The Premier is right that there are challenges in the relationship. Certainly our government heard from Alberta a strong message in the election, and that means we have to listen really hard.
And today, she's crossed provincial boundaries to meet with Saskatchewan's Scott Moe.
I look forward to having a further discussion, as we have spoken, but a further discussion also at the highest levels of the Government of Canada with respecting the Prime Minister's statements on election night, given the outcome in this province, that he understood the frustrations in this province and wanted to be here to support the people of Saskatchewan.
Brad Wall is the former Premier of Saskatchewan. He joins us from Regina. Hello, Brad Wall. Nice to have you on the show. You wrote an op-ed in the National Post last month about the urgent need for a new deal with Ottawa for the West, saying, quote, it's time for less conversation and more action. So I'm wondering, does the Freeland visit qualify as action?
I think it does, in a way, as long as it's a prelude to specific and concrete measures that the federal government can take that will help alleviate some of the pressure and help the Prairie provinces and also Newfoundland and Labrador, who still have provinces because of the way our formula works, and have therefore their taxpayers been paying into equalization for a long time, in the last 4 years, even though the commodity prices have been low for that period of time, and there has been some significant economic dislocation. So I do think it starts with the meeting. Look, I think there's some positive signs. I think the Prime Minister's cabinet, his appointment of Minister Freeland in the first place, probably the most senior, most effective federal minister to this file, in addition to the U.S. engagement stewardship that she's going to be doing as well, is a good sign. I think it's a good sign that she came out here immediately to meet with both premiers, Kenney and Moe. I think it's also a positive sign that Mr. Carr has been retained as an advisor, even though his health doesn't necessarily permit a full cabinet portfolio. Perhaps he will be advising the Prime Minister on matters as regards Saskatchewan and Alberta. And he specifically has said that they might be open to some changes on C-69, which the industry calls the No More Pipeline bill, as you know. So those are all hopeful things that have happened. But you know what, in a family, if a family member's got a concern and they reach out, it's good to be listened to and to feel that the other family members, or maybe the head of the family, is listening to you in a genuine way. But eventually you do need action. And I think there are some specific measures here that would be fair for the country to pursue. I think there's an imbalance right now in the Federation and an unfairness that some specific measures could help alleviate, some economic issues that specific measures the federal government could do could help alleviate, that wouldn't require messing around with the Constitution, which I don't.
No.
I just don't see that's anywhere anyone needs to or wants to go right now. So that will be the measure, I think, for the premiers here and the people of Alberta and Saskatchewan, and to some extent Newfoundland and Labrador. The measure will be the actions that follow this listing.
I don't want to be pessimistic, but Scott Moe was here in Ottawa last week. He met with Justin Trudeau, and he said he was disappointed after the meeting. So I'm wondering, Freeland is going there. It's a different person, but same policies. So do you think that she'll do any better?
Well, I'm going to be optimistic, I guess. I'm going to be hopeful that that's the case. I think it would be a risky proposition for the Prime Minister to signal what he did in the cabinet shuffle by her appointment, and then for her to come out immediately, to her credit, and meet with the premiers here. It would be a risky proposition for his government, a minority government, to then stop there and to not perhaps consider some amendments to C-69, to not perhaps consider what what I've called a sort of a rebate an equalization rebate back to the provinces that have been paying in when it's not been fair that they should do so without some reinvestment.
And this
back.
without changing the equalization formula that
right.
Kenny is asking
Right.
for. It would make it
Quite
more
right.
simple.
Quite right. There's a mechanism within the equalization program that allows for this kind of repayment. A fiscal stabilization mechanism is what it's called. I think it would act more like a rebate. So, Saskatchewan taxpayers pay roughly $500 million a year into equalization. Nothing's been coming back for a long time, even though external factors have caused some economic challenges here. In Alberta, it's $2 billion roughly that gets paid in if you use a per capita calculation, with nothing coming back. And so the federal government could say, look, we're going to send some of that back, just outside the formula. That doesn't come from any of the recipient provinces. It doesn't come from the $12 billion or so that Quebec gets from the program. It would be separate from that. And that's one measure that the federal government could look at, as well as being, I think, flexible on C-69, so that we can have some comfort that we can actually continue to build pipelines in the future and move our products to market. Yeah,
there are, definitely solutions. It depends on, how much compromise Ottawa and these provinces, want to reach. And it's true that Calgary has the highest, or among the highest now, unemployment rates in the country. And, nobody can deny that, even people who are here in Ottawa. But do you still think that Jason Kenney should tone down the rhetoric a little bit?
Well, maybe the result of the election, where the expression and the will of the people of Saskatchewan and Alberta was pretty stark on that electoral map in terms of what colors were there and what colors were no longer there, combined with a firm stand by the premiers that some action needs to be taken to alleviate the pressures here. Maybe that's the reason why you have the Prime Minister signaling as he has with the cabinet shuffle that has his Deputy Prime Minister now with responsibility for this file, and her prompt visit out to these two provinces. So I wouldn't second guess the actions of the premiers out here. Neither the people, the voters. They sent a message, and the premiers are now continuing to send a message. And I think the early signs are, at least, that the federal government is picking that message up. Now, again, it needs to move beyond the listening to some action, and we'll see in the coming days and months if that's the case or not.
Well, there will be a First Ministers meeting in Toronto on Monday. They will all be together, they'll huddle, and then we'll see, concretely what kind of action they will get from Ottawa. Brad Wall, thank you for your time.
Thank you.